Aristotle versus Machiavelli, the politics of the left and the right. The United States Constitution was ratified in 1788 and became the law of the land in 1789, and is not a document that was created in the desire not to be England. It was thoughtfully debated, sometimes hotly debated, and written document that adopted much of the philosophy of John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, who all had great influence on the Founding Fathers. Their influence, though, goes back further to the political debates of the Golden Age of ancient Greece and the Renaissance periods. The debate over these two views, one that was rejected by the authors of the Constitution, and the other, though not consciously, is largely adopted by the modern left in the United States. Larry Arnn makes a compelling argument when he states the movements of two philosophic ideas that shape the political debate and philosophy that carry through to today. The first is the reason-based logic of Aristotle that led to the backbone of the U.S. Constitution. Aristotle believed that humans were fallen creatures and, quote, yet partake in the divine, end quote, and that human passions are strong and can lead one astray, but ultimately humans are born with the ability to make choices between good and bad. Despite the basic human needs and passions, the understanding of good and bad were part of man's conscience. Aristotle was pre-Christianity, but his ideas are clearly a base philosophy and ideal that most people in the West are at least aware of, even if not in full agreement. Founding Father and second President of the United States, John Adams, believed that morality and virtue were necessary for the U.S. constitutional system. Adams was clearly aligned with a philosophy that finds its lineage in Aristotle's philosophy. Aristotle, though not a Christian, believed in a system that later aligned with Christian thought, though there were some that later debated over this fact. Aristotle's philosophy came to the forefront, like many Western classics, during the Renaissance. This was also a time of upheaval in the Christian church due to the Reformation. Aristotle's beliefs were more that man had a choice of doing good or bad, and making that choice of doing good was what determined the type of person you were. The laws of man, not driven by a divine, were seen as a driving determinant, and this could be seen as an incorrect view by Christians' belief in God. Conscious decision is what made a person good or bad, but this tied into a Christian philosophy of works over faith. Martin Luther rejected the Aristotle ideal in Disputation against Scholastic Philosophy, and that adopting Aristotle ideals of ethics of virtues was a rejection of justification of grace through faith alone, and not that Aristotle influenced works as he saw in the Catholic Church holding true. Luther did not necessarily reject the Aristotle belief of the conscious, but attempted to add the idea of Protestant justification to the accepted classical Western ideal that was seeing a resurgence in the Renaissance. The point is that classical thought, early Christian, quote, Catholic thought, and later Protestant thought accepted the basic Aristotle idea of man, but went about it in different ways on the state of man and faith. John Adams summed up that people of faith and morality, even if they way to reach that morality, works or faith, is that the moral code is what the Constitution was, and the people that it was meant to serve. The Constitution was written in such a way that any part of it could be amended, though not easily amended by design, to serve the needs of the people as the need arises. This is where the ability of another political philosophy from the Renaissance that was not accepted by the Founding Fathers could find a way into the Constitution. The alternate and newer philosophy, primarily from Machiavelli, who rejected Aristotle, something that Luther did not even do, that the idea promoted by Machiavelli is the rejection of objective truth, and argue that everything of man is malleable. Good or bad did not exist if one wanted to do something that was in the idea of objective truth was considered bad, but if the person wanted to do it anyway, he should just do it and call it good. This applied to all aspects of life. One could simply declare it good or bad, and it was considered correct for that individual. There are no boundaries or limits, but one's behavior is that they adopt such philosophy. When one adopts Machiavelli's philosophy in life, there's no boundaries in which to base a rule-based society. There is no objective truth to set boundaries, so whatever the individual wants makes it right. The issue is that a society that adopts such a philosophy to govern, what happens when one person's desire conflicts with another person's desire, and neither can coexist together? Like many things in an unjust society, the one that holds the most power will prevail regardless of the perceived truth of the lesser statured individual. These two philosophies, though not absolute, can be distinguished in the main two political philosophy in today's U.S. It is easy to identify more right-wing supporters with the philosophy rooted in Aristotle, and the left-wing identify with Machiavelli-style philosophy. The issue is that the U.S. Constitution was made in the Aristotle model based on objective truth and rule of law based on that truth. But it was also made to be modified to meet the needs and desires of the people, voters. How does a government based on the rule of law and a ruling document for that survive being influenced by subjective truth? The Constitution was made to be difficult to change, so it was hard for a document to be changed into a Machiavelli-style document. However, the government is made up of people who can hold either one of these philosophies, or any philosophy for that matter. So despite what the Constitution says, people in government can make decisions of how they want to govern despite the limits placed on them by the Constitution. For example, a powerful bureaucracy led by unelected officials can make changes based on how they view the truth to be. Or a judiciary that believes that the original intent does not matter, but what is, quote, right in their view. Or a president that uses executive orders enacted by a bureaucracy that has the force of law to make changes to see fit regardless of the law, thus ignoring the judicial and legislative branches when the rule is in opposition to the bureaucracy or the executive branch. This is where we find ourselves today. Aristotle, Luther, and Adams all argued for objective truth, and Adams believed that a functioning society needed to believe in an objective truth to create the boundaries and baseline on which to govern. This would mean that people knew the rules and the boundaries of which to operate in society and seek life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That was the American promise. All this is put in danger when the political movement rejects objective truth and can change the rules as they see fit to advance their political agenda. The powerful are in a position to override anyone's perceived truth, though, so not all are equal before the law in such a system. In addition, what might be considered a, quote, safe truth, end quote, today may not be, quote, a safe truth, end quote, tomorrow. And this can be decided at a simple whim of the politically powerful. Is it true that the U.S. has a separation of church and state and the establishment of a state religion, but it was assumed, as Adams stated, that we all had to have a moral philosophy in this country that we all agreed upon? When agreement cannot be reached on basic objective truths, it puts us all in jeopardy.